been so far for you?
It's been great. I've had a blast. This is only my second time tabling at a con. I've been a visitor of cons for a long time, but this is my second time actually as a guest. So I love it. It's fantastic.
Oh my God. Okay, so now I want to know, like, what's the biggest convention you've ever been to as an attendee?
Oh, as an attendee, San Diego Comic-Con.
Okay, of course. So like, give me the highlight reel. What was like the most incredible thing that you saw, participated in? What happened?
At San Diego?
Yeah.
I mean, my takeaway from San Diego Comic-Con is just teams and teams of people.
Yeah.
When I was younger, like in my 20s, my wife and I used to go, and you could just say, hey, it's Saturday, and this weekend is Comic-Con. Let's drive down to Comic-Con. And you could just go down, find a parking space, walk in. Now it's like you have to, it's a plan. You have to plan this thing weeks in advance, months in advance, sometimes years in advance. So my really good memories of San Diego Comic-Con, not that it's bad now, but I like the less crowded, little more low impact San Diego Comic-Con of years gone by. Yeah. Sadly, it's enormous now, but still fun.
Yeah. It feels like you have to have like a wedding planner to like actually just
100%,
attend the
yeah,
event.
100%. It's a commitment.
So what fandoms were you super into around that time? Like you were going to SDCC to see what?
Well, Disney stuff, of course. Movie memorabilia, I guess, was kind of my big thing. Like movie scripts and movie posters, like classic movie-related toys, action figures, that kind of thing, was sort of where I was at. Indiana Jones was my big thing. A lot of people are big Star Wars nuts. I'm more of an Indiana Jones guy, so looking for that stuff. Yes, fedora.
You get what's up.
Yeah, so that's kind of where I was looking for.
Okay, so walk me through around that time. When did animation and like when did you began drawing very, very young? When did that come into play for you?
Yeah, ever since I can remember, I drew cartoons. I think a lot of it was because my parents took me to lots and lots of Disney movies. I had a strict diet of G-rated material for a very long time. And there was just something about Disney animation, the appeal of the characters, the expressions, the acting, just something in the eyes. I wanted to go home and capture that. I don't know what it was, but I just wanted to see if I could do that. And that kind of sparked a love of drawing, a love of animation. And then that, as I got older, that just grew into just filmmaking overall, screenwriting, directing, that kind of thing.
So was there one particular character that you found yourself sort of like going over and over and over again, like or a certain cast of characters? Who did you find yourself drawing the most?
It was pretty general Disney characters.
Okay.
Anything that I could get my hands on that was Disney, I would copy it. That's kind of how I learned to draw. I did start off trying to do my own, and then I started, looking at illustrations or frame grabs from movies that were in books, art of books, that kind of thing, and kind of not trace but copied. Yeah. Not that that's the best way to learn how to draw, but it was just sort of how I evolved.
Yeah. Yes, yeah, exactly. Like learning, yeah. I mean, that's what people, I feel like that's what a lot of professionals will tell you to do also. They'll be like, just to understand how something is, you can always just copy it, or even like tracing it to just kind of understand how the lines go and what the movement is like, all that kind of thing. Would you say that's?
Totally, yeah, as long as that's used more as like you said, building a foundation and not your only source of, like that's not, there has to be more to that. It's part of your understanding and your learning, but then as long as you're growing away from that and using that as a springboard forward, I think that's pretty common. I mean, most people.
Yeah. So when did it become less of a hobby and more of a, I think I want to do this for the rest of my life? Walk me through the specifics of like when you got into the professional world and working with Disney, which is like, that's so cool that was the thing that you started with, and then like that's your thing. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, there was in 1981, there was a book that came out called Disney Animation: The Illusion of Life, and it was written by Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston, two of Walt's 9 old men. And it was really one of the, that was a book that pulled the curtain back on how animation is made, particularly at Disney. And it's a massive book, and they broke down the entire process of animation and who all the people were, what are the different departments, how it's, you know. And so it was the first time I realized, oh, there are people called animators, and they're the ones that actually do the drawings that I see on the screen. They bring the characters to life. That's what I want to do. And that was the moment where I said, I want to pursue that. Now, when I got into the industry, my first job was as an animator. I very quickly realized I'm not a good animator. I still like to draw. And I moved more into storyboarding, which I really liked a lot more. And also just, again, story development, directing, more of that kind of the bigger picture stuff. I just was not, in the days of 2D animation, hand-drawn animation, there's so much technical drawing that you have to do, and I am just not a technically minded person. I'm much more of I just draw a little more organically. I moved into storyboarding then, but like that a lot more.
Yeah. So how did we get into the Disney walls?
So I worked at a studio out so I went to CalArts in Southern California for 3 years. Got a job at a smaller studio called Hyperion Animation, and I got to do a bunch of different roles there. Then two people that I worked with at Hyperion, one was named Kevin Lima. He was a director who was developing some stuff at this studio named Hyperion. The other guy was named Chris Buck, who was also my animation teacher at CalArts. Well, then fast forward a few years, they become the directors of Tarzan at Disney, and they say, hey, would you want to come be a story artist on this movie? And I was like, yes, please.
Yeah.
Couldn't get there fast enough.
Yeah.
So I really owe it to Kevin and Chris for opening the door for me.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. That's the thing. So how did you move from the animation team to directing? Is it just being in the room and knowing everybody and expressing interest, or how did that happen for you?
Yeah, it's all those things. At Disney, certainly back at that time, they wouldn't consider anybody as a director unless you've at least run a department, had some kind of leadership role in the studio for at least one movie. So my first step was I was a story artist on Tarzan. I expressed interest in leadership roles. I became the story supervisor on Emperor's New Groove, and then also the story supervisor on Brother Bear. And because I had 2 tours of duty in a leadership role, they said, okay, we have more faith in you now to give you the opportunity to direct. So it was A, being a squeaky wheel, and B, putting in the time and just proving that I can lead a team.
Yeah, absolutely. So then voiceover obviously came into play with Meet the Robinsons. How did that happen? Did you have to audition for that, or was it because, same story, you were in the room and you wanted to do it and it just kind of worked out? How did that happen?
Very weird. So as I'm sure a lot of you know, at Disney we do, when we do a lot of workshop screenings of the movie before they go into production, and it's all our storyboards timed out and then cut to temp music and temp sound effects and temp dialogue. So for many years I'd done temp dialogue on different movies. I've always enjoyed just doing voices as a hobby, not anything I would pursue. And then when I started directing Meet the Robinsons, we did the same thing. We just cast ourselves in our roles and for our workshop screenings. And I happened to just be in the booth that day and jumped in there to do the bowler hat guy, the villain in Meet the Robinsons. And fully expecting to cast an actor, not intending for me to do it, but I did it enough times that people started associating the character with the voice, and then eventually the studio said, we really like what you're doing, we would like you to do the voice, and so I did it.
That's so like the like, not even prelay. Like what would temp dialogue? Is that what you?
Yeah, we call it scratch dialogue. That's our term for it. But yeah, it's temp.
So like that was your audition.
That was
basically.
it.
That's
yeah.
so cool. That's so cool. So what kind of other, if it's something that you can't talk about, I don't know how like NDA it is at this point. But like, were there other characters that you did scratch dialogue for that you were like, oh, that would have been fun if I could have done it more?
Yeah, I did. For Tarzan, I did the scratch for Jane's father, Porter. I did Pacha in Emperor's New Groove, which I was not good for. It's really best that they I mean, all of these, it's better who they got. I'm glad I never did those voices. An interesting one more recently was the first Zootopia. There's a deleted scene. I think it's floating around on the internet somewhere. But there was this an early story version. There was this big giant polar bear named Kozlov, and he was Russian, and he was like a mob boss kind of guy. And so I did the scratch for that in a Russian accent. That was super fun. I'd never expected to be cast in that role, by the way, but it was just a really fun character to get to do.
For sure.
Unfortunately, he didn't survive the movie. Well,
lives on
or
in
he's in
memory.
there, but he just doesn't have a speaking part or something like that. Yeah.
I feel like they have the big polar bears. They're like the bodyguards. For,
Yeah.
yeah.
He was sort of a precursor to those guys.
Yeah. Oh, that's so fun, though. That's so cool. My friends, I want to follow up. If you want to hang out up here by the microphone and ask a little question, now is the time, but I'll keep yapping. Go ahead, my friend. What's your name?
Hi,
You're good. Yeah, it's on. It's on. We got you.
hi, my name's Raymond.
Hi, Raymond.
Yeah, and I had a question. So speaking of story changes and the characters getting cut and what have you, one film that's like significantly different from how it started was Emperor's New Groove. And one thing I was wondering about is, of course, Emperor's New Groove initially was not that well received, but then over time it's kind of grown a cult following. It's now become like really, really huge and really popular. But that being said, had the original version of Emperor's New Groove, Kingdom of the Sun, that musical version of it, had that movie come to be, do you think that that movie would have been more well received and more successful than the Emperor's New Groove we got today, or are you more happy with like what we got today and you think we might have been to a better direction?
It's interesting. I mean, it's always hard to say, but certainly the original version, which was called Kingdom of the Sun, as I'm sure you know, was more traditionally Disney. It was still had humor in it, but it also had a lot of dramatic aspects to it. It was much more of a musical than Emperor's New Groove ended up being. So it probably would have fit more into the Disney canon versus Emperor's New Groove, which feels like, did Disney really make that? It feels more like a Looney Tunes movie or whatever. It's got such a different tone and a different vibe to it. And maybe the company would have supported it more back then because it was more traditional Disney. I think the way it turned out, I don't know if the company really knew what to do with it. And as a result, they kind of buried it and swept it under the rug and said, well, we'll just move on and never do that again, will we? But then all these years later, it's survived. So it may have been more of a success back then and less of a cult following today, the way Emperor's New Groove was.
So when did the TV show come out? There was the TV show.
Yeah. That was a year or so after the movie, I think?
2006, I think, yes.
Yeah? Okay. Yeah, so a couple years after the movie, yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for your question, my friend.
Thanks.
Hello.
Hello, I am Diego. Currently, my sister is studying animation. So first of all, my question is, can I record your answer or no?
Oh, sure, absolutely. Is that okay?
Thank you for asking.
Okay. I guess my question. So I guess my question would be, since you are a director, do you have any advice for like, what do you look for in like, I guess, an animator?
First and foremost, anybody that works in, well, A, the entertainment field, and B, definitely animation, you really have to be a collaborator. You have to be, so my advice is always get comfortable showing your work to other people, receiving feedback, also learning how to give feedback in a constructive way, because animation is all about that. It's hundreds of people coming together to make one thing, and you don't do it alone. I mean, sometimes, yeah, you can do your own independent work on your own, and that's great. But if you're going to work in the industry, if you're going to work at a studio, you have to be comfortable collaborating. I think as artists, also, we're very used to just sitting at our desks, doing our little thing, and just doing what we want to do, and that's all great. But that's only part of the job when you're working at a studio. You do what you sit at your desk, your Cintiq, whatever your whatever your thing is, and you do your work, and you do it from your heart, and you pour yourself into it, but then you have to take it into the room and say, here's what I did. And then people will comment on it, and then ultimately you make it together. So collaborating, just getting used to collaborating, getting comfortable with that, I think is the number one thing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
I want to know also for either, aspiring artists or whatever, what would you say has helped you the most when you just like, brain is not translating to the page, artist block, I can't seem to just get it right. How do you usually deal with that and like sticking to the discipline?
Yeah, well, first off, get away from it. Take a break, because most likely it means that it's not your art, it's your eyes. You have somehow lost sense of what you're doing. Maybe you're a little too much in the weeds. You've lost your objectivity. You got to get away from it, clear your mind, and come back to it. I find 9 times out of 10 when I do that, I go, oh, it's not as bad as I thought it was. And now I actually have ideas of how I can fix it. But last night when I was blocked and I couldn't work anymore, I thought the whole thing sucked. And but I was able to find, once I could clear my head, I could find a path forward. And then also number 2, change the medium that you're working in. Sometimes if you're drawing with a fine tip pen, get a fatter pen and draw with that. And even like get a really fat chisel tip Sharpie, or change the brush width on your digital thing. Because a lot of times when you get blocked, it's because you're in your head too much and you're thinking and getting too analytical and intellectual about what you're drawing. And sometimes when you pull back and you work with something that you can't noodle with, you can then get to the essence of what you're trying to do, and then you can always go back and sort of tie it down. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Doing more of like like what the movement of it is, or like the general idea,
Get to
and
the
then
core of it.
get into the weeds later on. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
100%.
for sure. Hi, my friend. What's your name?
Jacob,
Hi, Jacob. What's your question?
around the time you were being chosen to direct, were there any other films you could have done, like besides Meet the Robinsons? Like, because I know sometimes they provide like multiple options for them to direct, or did you like specifically seek out Meet the Robinsons?
Right. So I was, excuse me. I had already expressed interest to direct back prior to Emperor's New Groove. During Brother Bear is when I kind of started. The studio started giving me a little more trust, and they gave me one particular project to develop, which was really cool, and I wish it could get made. I tried to get it made so many times. It was called Three Pigs, and it was based on this children's book. Pardon me. Based on this children's book about.
You got your water, my friend?
Thank you. I just gotta. Sometimes I have that morning.
For
that
sure.
morning voice.
For sure.
It was based on this really fun children's book about. And it was about when the big bad wolf. It's the three pigs story, three little pigs, and the big bad wolf huffs and puffs and blows so hard that he actually blows the pigs out of their book into another storybook. And then all the pigs journey from different storybooks to different storybooks. It was super fun. Anyways, so I was doing that for a while, and then when I finished with Brother Bear, I was expecting to go on to Three Pigs and continue that, but they said, we're going to put that aside, and we have this script for this movie called A Day with Wilbur Robinson, which ended up being Meet the Robinsons. So there wasn't really a choice, and I did not seek out Meet the Robinsons at all. It was handed to me, but it couldn't have been a better fit. Like, it was, when I read the script, I was like, yeah, I got to do this. I got to do this movie. So.
And as I talked to you yesterday, it was actually the first movie to debut the new animation studios
That's
logo.
right, the new Mickey logo. And I think the new Castle logo too, but I'm not. I might be wrong about that. But
And I think
the Walt Disney Pictures or whatever it is.
Yeah, the 2006 logo, I think.
Yeah.
So you got to debut a couple first there.
That's right.
Special.
Pretty cool.
It's very special. Do you have a specific memory from working on that movie that's like a specific memory that you hold very dear, or just like it was the whole experience that was amazing?
I mean, it was the whole experience, but I certainly remember. So why I was saying that that I connected so much with the script to Meet the Robinsons is because that was a story about a boy who was trying to get adopted. What the studio didn't know is that I was adopted. Very different circumstances than the boy in the movie, but I immediately connected to that. I said, you don't understand. I have to do this movie because I can relate to this. And again, they had no idea. It was just somehow meant to be. And so fast forward many years later, we're sitting at the premiere of Meet the Robinsons, and my adopted mother and father are sitting next to me as we're watching the film. And by the end of it, I could hear my mom sobbing, and then I started sobbing, but it was lovely.
Did they know beforehand that that was what it was about?
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. I didn't tell them the whole story, but they knew that there was that aspect to it. So that was really special, getting to watch it with them.
And to like hear you also as such a major role, like that's amazing. That's you were on both sides of it. That's so
right.
That's so cool. So what role does voiceover play in your life now? Is it still just kind of like I happen to be in the studio and I jump in, or is it something that's like I would like to do this more? Like what would you say you're at with that?
It's the former. I'm in the studio and I happen to jump in. I get asked to come down and do scratch a lot. Every now and then it sticks. Like there's a character in the 2 Frozen movies who's a fat bald guy. I don't know why they cast me in that. He's a palace guard. He's like one of the palace guys. His name is Kai. And so I did the scratch voice for him, but then they just kept it because it's a very small part. I'm already in SAG because of the previous voices, so it was like, well, just keep him and we don't have to cast anybody else, which is very nice. So little things like that happen, but so more of a casual thing, and I guess just more of an internal Disney thing, not something that I'm pursuing outside of Disney.
Yeah. How often would you say that happens? Is they just keep the scratch track as like for bit characters like that?
Yeah, it does happen quite a bit. Is particularly if the person doing the scratch does other acting jobs. Oregon is in SAG, so it's easy. Then they don't have to get them into SAG, or they don't have to get into any of that awkward stuff of paying people that aren't in SAG, that kind of thing. But yeah, it does happen quite a bit.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, welcome back. What are you thinking, my friend?
Hold on, give me a sec. So you started working at Disney in an interesting time period where the whole, I guess, industry is transitioning from 2D to 3D. So I guess, how was that like?
It was, I mean, as you can imagine, there was it was kind of sad because a lot of people lost their jobs, as happens in times of disruption, technological disruption. We've got a little technical disruption going on these days with AI. See how that shakes out. But a lot of people were displaced. Some people were able to transition from the 2D world into the 3D world. A lot of the animators, big animators in the 2D world, trained to go into CG, and they did really well. So it was a mix. Some people found a totally new world to play in, and they loved it. And other people had to then go find other pursuits. So a lot of 2D artists went into comics or went into illustration or started their own independent animation studios and did that on the side. What's that? Yeah, exactly. And there was the Florida studio that they had for a while at the Hollywood Studios Park. Some of the guys there formed their own animation company called Premise Animation. So it was bumpy, but everybody found a way through it.
All right, and I guess I don't know much about animation, but like I assume like all the techniques like you learned, like a lot of it like just like thrown out the window since you were doing 3D. But I guess some of them would have stayed.
Yeah, all the foundational stuff, the fundamentals of performance and acting, storytelling, all those fundamentals of animation, those still apply, and those will always be consistent no matter what the technique is. But then it just became a whole new set of tools that people had to use. And there's things like in 2D animation, as an animator, you can cheat a lot because you're drawing every frame. And so sometimes you cheat, you just put little cheats in there. If somebody needs to reach off screen and grab a water bottle, you just have the character reach off screen and then you draw a water bottle. But in CG, somebody has to design that water bottle and then model that water bottle and then texture that water bottle. And like, so there's things like that. There's those cheats that you can do in 2D that you can't do in CG. So there's differences like that that just have to be kind of a new skill set, a new, just a whole new way of thinking, kind of. Exactly. Yeah. So things like that, but minor.
Thanks so much.
Thanks.
How often do you find yourself a part of the 3D process? Or if ever, are you ever a part of the 3D process? Or is it usually just storyboarding? Okay.
Meet the Robinsons was a CG movie. Then I went back to 2D for Winnie the Pooh. Then I went back to CG for a show called Monsters at Work that we did for Disney Plus. Currently, I'm back in development, so I don't know what this project will be at some point, but so it's kind of, but I like bouncing back and forth because it's just different. I think they both have strengths, they both have setbacks, and so it's just a different mindset you get into, but they can both do amazing things storytelling wise.
And yourself as an animator, do you ever get into like actually animating with the computer, or are you usually storyboarding?
I'm all storyboarding.
Okay.
Yeah, I gave up animation a long time ago. So, but I was one of the few holdouts doing my storyboarding on paper up into, I think Moana was the last movie I storyboarded on paper. So now I'm all digital. I just work on my iPad on a program called Procreate, which I think is really great.
Yes, I feel like that's a very accessible program.
Yes,
I even use myself, and I just do it for fun. That's
Yep.
so cool.
It's great.
It's what the pros use, guys. That's what's up.
Yep.
Hey, friend, welcome back. What are you thinking?
So now, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that you're involved with what was supposed to be a Princess and the Frog TV program, but my understanding now is it's supposed to be a short.
That's correct.
Now, I don't know how much you're allowed to say, but do you have any information on it, like whether it's going to be 2D or 3D, or do you have any idea of?
No, I can neither confirm nor deny any of that. And also because, to be totally honest, like I said, we're really early in development, just kind of building our story right now. So I don't know when it's even supposed to come out, and I don't know technologically how we're going to make it yet. Now it's just kind of finding the right story. But yeah, it was very sad that Tiana show had been going for probably 4 years or so, and it's never fun when you get your work flushed down the toilet and no one ever gets to see it. So I worked on that version as a storyboard artist for a couple months, but then the studio has decided, yes, to do this 30-minute Disney Plus special, and so now I'm one of the directors on that. So I think it's going to be really fun. But yes, it's really sad, unfortunately, that all had to go away. But
And just one more quick question.
Mhm.
I've been hearing rumblings that perhaps some people think that 2D might be making a comeback. Now, if that were to happen, well, I guess my question is, in your opinion, do you think we'll ever see the resurgence of 2D? Because I think the last 2D animation Disney did was the 2011 Winnie the Pooh that you did. So do you think Disney might ever go back to that at some point?
I think so. The question is how, because at the moment they're not equipped to do a full-length feature in 2D. It's just, I don't think I'm talking out of school. It's just the facts. I mean, for Princess, when they brought 2D back for Princess and the Frog, and then for Winnie the Pooh, there was a huge effort. They had to rehire a whole group of people. They had to get all the desks back and all the, all that stuff. And then, of course, once 2D went away, that stuff all went away. And so it's a digital studio now. There are, though, a very small little group of 2D artists that do special projects like Once Upon a Studio from a couple years ago. The tattoo on Maui that moves around, that's done hand-drawn, Eric Goldberg. So there's things like that, and so there is a quiet investment in 2D, and I think it will gradually blossom as in the coming years. It's just going to take some time to do it. It won't be right away.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you so much. Did you have any involvement or like at least overseeing the very, very short 3D animation in the Tiana ride? Because I just rode that the other day and I was like, oh my God, wait a minute, they're 3D, that's so
Yeah.
cute, oh my gosh.
No, I didn't. I'd actually left Disney in 2021 and just came back last fall. So I was sort of, I left for a couple years. And also oh no, that's not true. Yeah, the animation studio does do that stuff, but so I was not part of that.
Okay.
But I just wrote it the other day for the first time.
Oh my gosh, isn't
Also.
it so cute? It's so cute.
very
Just literally
cute.
like a month ago now is when we went on it. My boyfriend had never seen the movie and he was like, let's go again. That was so good. It was so
That's
cute.
great. I love it.
If y'all are ever in Orlando and y'all are in Magic Kingdom, go ride Tiana's Bayou Adventure. They reskin Splash Mountain and it's just the cutest ever. I love it. Hi, my friend. Welcome back. What are we
Good.
thinking?
Actually, my question was involved with Winnie the Pooh as well. Like, mine was more like, so, what was it like working with these like obviously beloved characters of pop culture?
Yeah, I'm going to take a quick sip really fast.
Yeah. It's good.
No, you can't.
No, it's good.
I know.
Please hold. Water
I know.
break.
I know. Sorry.
No. It was a blast, and it was really interesting because we talked about this a lot when we were making Winnie the Pooh, because at Disney Feature Animation, we're typically doing original stories that are not based on IP, but yet here we found ourselves doing Winnie the Pooh, and those are characters that are so well defined. We know how they speak, we know how they behave, we know where they live, we know everything about them already, and so we could just start working. We didn't have to have that whole blank page phase of, okay, who are these characters and what's the world, like creating it from scratch. We had an established world with an established cast. So we could just start drawing and start spitballing and writing stuff, and it was really fun, and it allowed us to move much quicker. And the characters are just so much fun to work with. So some of them are very challenging to draw, but
Who's the hardest?
Rabbit's really hard to draw. There's lots of construction in his muzzle.
Yeah.
And some shapes that, like, if you get it wrong, it's really wrong. It's a lot of nuance to those characters.
Yeah,
If I remember like seeing some behind the scenes stuff, they like the first time they drew it, they forgot to draw his like little beard in there.
Yeah, there's little things like that. He has a little chin beard. There's this his cheek sort of wrap down around his nose. He can very easily start looking like Bugs Bunny if you're not careful.
Don't want to get in trouble with the WB.
No. So yeah, but it was so much fun.
Thank you so much, my friend. Okay, I think to close out the questionnaire part of it, I want to know what part of now that you've done like every part of the process almost now, what would you say you connect with the most, where you feel strongest, where you feel you really sit? And then in that role, what is the IP that you were working on that you feel the most connected to and the strongest?
My comfort zone, I think, is sitting as a director in the room with the story team, the writers and the storyboard artists, probably because that's where I started. And so being in the story room and hashing out a story with the team is really fun, challenging, but when it's working, it's just like really exciting, just bouncing off of each other and, oh yeah, let's do that, and what about that, and let's try this, and so I think that story room vibe for me is that's kind of what I really love.
Yeah.
And of everything I've worked on, I love it all, but certainly Meet the Robinsons I think has a special place in my heart that will always kind of be number one. It was my first movie as a director at Disney, so that makes it automatically special. But then there's all the other personal connections and
absolutely.
all that stuff.
I figured that was the answer. I just wanted you to say it.
Yeah, you never know.
So anything that you would like to promote, anything you would like to plug, anything happening now, other than just visit you at your table, obviously?
Yeah, come to my table. One of the things I did that I'm really proud of, I published a book last year called Disney In Between. Maybe this is a little too much of a deep dive for some people.
I don't know. Our friends here really seem to like know what's up. They're in it.
Good.
Yeah.
It's a nonfiction book about the Disney studios from 1966 to 1986, which is from Walt's passing to the Eisner-Katzenberg years in the mid-'80s, when the renaissance of animation started, that kind of thing. What a lot of people refer to as the dark ages of Disney, where they were kind of lost their way without Walt. And the Disney name lost some of its luster as the world was changing around them and Hollywood was changing around them. So a time period that I find really fascinating, also not very well documented in the history books because it isn't a sexy time in Disney history.
Right.
And also it was my childhood Disney, so just from a fan standpoint, I just love digging into that and talking to the folks that were involved in both animation and live action movies at the time. So it's movies like the original Tron, The Black Cauldron, The Black Hole, Bedknobs and Broomsticks, Pete's Dragon, Freaky Friday, the original, those kind of movies. So I'm really proud of that. I have QR codes at my table if you're interested in looking further, and I have a sample book if you'd like to come check it out.
Oh, cool.
And then look for the Tiana special on Disney Plus someday in the future. I have no idea when, but I will. Yes. Yep. Great. Yep.
Oh
I'll
my
be
gosh,
here.
she'll be here in the flesh. That's so exciting. Amazing. Whereabouts is your table located? What are some landmarks that you can see around it?
I'm sort of close. I'm sort of diagonal from Chris Sarandon. He seems to be pretty popular today. I'm the person behind me is Brett Ewan, the voice of Mickey Mouse.
Oh, very
so I'm kind of
cool.
in that general area. Back
Little
in
Disney gang in the corner.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
All right. Say again.
Mm-hmm.
He's around there?
Bill Farmer's sort of on the behind me as well. Yeah.
There you go. That's the gang. Well, thank y'all so much for being here. One more round of applause for our friend Steve.
Thanks, everybody.